you're saying that you don't like that God commits genocide in the Bible. These are your, I'm not going to call them true or untrue claims because I'm not going to make claims on them yet. I don't
Yeah.
know what passages you're referring to, all of that. I'm not trying to go
Yeah, sure.
into the slippery slope,
I
but
mean,
whatever.
you're against G-side too, right? Like when people do it
Oh, of
throughout
course,
history,
but
yeah.
this is the caveat. This is the caveat. When we're defining these terms, like, okay, I think genocide is bad. What do you mean by bad, and by what criteria are you still defining that term?
This is
Asked and answered.
yeah, this is
No,
overcomplicating things. It, like in a normal conversation, away from these kind of theological things, if somebody says, "I don't agree with that. I think it's bad," nobody goes, "By what criteria?" We all understand what we mean. You mean that you don't approve of it. You mean that you think it's unacceptable. You mean that you think that it's not something you agree with. It's not something you approve of. These aren't complicated concepts. I don't know why when we get into this sort of theological arena, suddenly people have a need to ask for detailed explanations of words that they would never ask to be explained in any other context. You do understand what it means for someone to say, "I don't approve of that. I think it's morally unacceptable." Right? That's not a hard
I think
concept.
that's a bit of a contextualist take that actually isn't that coherent if it holds water. Because if you're saying, oh, well, in a normal conversation, you know what I'm referring to, therefore I don't have to define what I mean, then what's the point in actually debating terms like this? What's the point in actually having these conversations? Because if you're making, hold on, let me finish. I try to let you finish. If you're making claims like, oh, well, rape is evil because I think it is, then you're saying, well, it's possible that it's not evil to some people, so it could be good. Would you say that it could be good?
Right. So here's where the mistake lies. The mistake lies in thinking that goodness or rightness or wrongness or good or evil with respect to an act is like a fact, like it's like a fact that can be known about it. Now there are people who think that that's true. They believe in moral facts. I personally don't. So I think that when we say something is evil, what we really mean is we don't like it, we disapprove of it, and we think that it's against our own moral intuitions. Now the question could be said, where do you get those moral intuitions? And Sean answered it. We get them from the fact that they derive from empathy and compassion and a recognition that cooperating is better than not cooperating, and looking to work together is what works for everyone, and that I know I'd rather be alive and not in pain, and so I can infer that other people would rather be alive and not in pain. And my own sense of empathy motivates me to not go against that, right? So that's enough of a basis for me to just be able to quite comfortably say, if I see someone kicking a baby, that's wrong. Now, I'm not making a factual claim. I'm not saying it's wrong as a fact, right? I'm just saying that's what I call wrong. That falls squarely into my idea of what wrongness looks like. You might have a different idea. If you think kicking babies for fun is right, okay, then we can talk about it and possibly get you medicated, or whatever it is you need to kind of get right. But it's not as complicated as you think. Where the interesting value in the conversations is not what do we mean by good and bad. It's, is this good and bad? Is this good or bad? It's, is this God in this book?
But do you see how
good or bad?
Sorry, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, to address something farther back, you said I'm trying to address things you say before I forget them. But you had said that ultimately, Sean had answered that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that, well, we see that helping each other is good and it works out and that it works for me. Well, the same could be applied for eugenics and the modern society and how it could be good and beneficial for society. And I'm not trying to make the argument that, well, now you would agree with eugenics. I'm making the argument that you can claim all of these things like, we know this, this, and this, but really, you don't know these things for certain. You're saying that I think these things and I prefer these things, but they're not actually facts in reality.
Slime, let me explain something here. So basically, everyone, including yourself, by the way, starts with a subjective
And we can get back to that, of course, yeah.
Yeah, everyone, including yourself, starts with their subjective preference as a basis for their moral compass. So a secular humanist like myself and like John will prefer to evaluate primarily how behaviors affect the well-being of others. someone who's a divine command theorist will value being told what to do and obeying over the well-being of others. It's all about what you personally value and what your preferences are.
Yeah.
So so what is a higher priority to you? Obedience to your God or the well-being of thinking creatures?
That's actually a straw man of the divine command theory, but I'll actually address what you're trying to say here, because if you're actually not giving a correct, you're giving a misinterpretation of what it actually is, because you're also you're also positing that this is a subjective starting point, which I'd actually like to conversate with you about what we were talking about last time, because if we're actually not starting at a contingent starting point, it's not going to be subjective, it's going to be necessary. Yeah, so my idea of divine command theory would be that ultimately goodness would be that which aligns with God's nature.
Therefore, so if it's God's nature to torture babies, would torturing babies be moral?
But it's not. So that's not. So but it's not. So
is that a yes? Is that a? It's a necessary consequence of what you're saying. So basically, whatever is in God's nature is by definition good. That's how you're defining good. So if God is a sadistic, cruel entity, then being sadistic and cruel would be moral. That's the logical entailment of what you said. Like, the best you could say is, well, God isn't that way. Well, it wouldn't matter if he was, because in your opinion, that would still be good. You're prioritizing obedience to his nature over the well-being of others.
Yeah.
That, I actually think that was one of the craziest reductios I've ever heard. But if the question
is, you
mean
accurate, I agree with you.
No, it like opened my eyes and made me like kneel in the middle of Walmart. I was like going insane. But anyways,
you've just said, and I'm going to just interject for a moment, because
wait, can I address what he said? Well,
I don't think he mischaracterized your position at all.
Could you explain how what I said is different from what he said, or it matches? Sorry.
Yeah, because you said that you think that divine command theory is that God's nature is good, and that whatever God does or says comes from his nature, and his nature is defined as goodness. Therefore, definitionally, anything he says is good. That is the view you expressed. And
that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
That's what I heard. What John heard.
That's what we all heard. But I'm going to give you. Okay, so let's let you row back on that and redefine what you think this goodness is.
Okay, so I had said that which is good is that which lines itself within God's nature. For what God intends, that which is good, because the privation of which would be that which is evil. Therefore, God's essence in it of itself cannot be evil by nature.
But that's just defining his goodness into existence using word games.
It's actually
it is.
No. It's identity.
It's as bullshit as the ontological argument of awarding him the property of existence.
If I say a triangle has three sides, am I now redefining a triangle?
No, because a triangle is defined as having three sides, but a God isn't defined as being
God
moral.
As that, can you argue against it?
Yes, I can. Because
can you argue why God cannot be that way?
Yes, I can. Because what happens is you can define it however you want, but when you do that, what you're essentially doing is you're substituting the word goodness for anything God does, because it's in his nature. It's not a straw man. It's in his. You said it's in his nature. If it's in his nature, then anything God does must be good, because his goodness is defined a priori as being God's nature, right? That's your starting point. That's your axiom.
I was paying attention.
Your axiom is that goodness is in God's nature. That's your starting point. Therefore, it follows
my morals?
For anything. Therefore, it follows from that anything God does must be good, because his goodness is in his nature. And what you do when you do that,
of what that is
you break the word goodness. It means nothing anymore. Goodness actually just means anything God does. So when you call God good, you're just saying God is what God does. And if you look for the moral value in that statement, there is none. It contains no moral information at all. It's just a word game. And the unfortunate thing is, you then end up in a position where when you look at the things he actually does, if you believe in the Bible God, like condoning slavery and ordering the killing of children and treating women like they're pieces of meat, you are then obligated to call those things good because you have defined them as good from the beginning. And that makes you a moral monster.
I mean, that's just a monologue to try and get your point across, but it doesn't really work because you haven't addressed what I've actually been talking about. You gave your straw man, and I'd actually like to double back on what you said because you're saying, oh, it's a word game that you make goodness mean nothing.
That's all it
your
is.
Prompt is God is evil, and you basically admitted that evil and goodness is a preference, so it means nothing. It's arbitrary. Like you admitted in our last debate, Sean, it's arbitrary.
Since we straw man, do you define good, please?
Yeah, goodness is ultimately that which aligns itself with God's nature.
Okay, so
goodness
literally that's
God.
what I said. So if God's
exactly
nature
what he said.
No. Let me address what you said, actually. Let me address what you said.
No, let me finish. You gave your definition.
Go ahead.
Good is whatever.
I gave my definition, and then you added 25 words. So go ahead. Thank you.
No, good is whatever aligns with God's nature. That's literally what everyone. This is recorded, by the way. That's what you said. So if God's nature was to harm babies, then harming babies would be good. That is a logical entailment.
See, there you go again. There you go. That's the worst reductio I've ever heard in my life, because now you have to define God's essence, within the scripture, showing that would be moral.
There's too much bullshit. There's too much bullshit going on here. In 1 Samuel 15:3, in 1 Samuel 15:3, God tells people to kill children. Is that good? Let's test, because you've said that Sean's position is an absurd reductio. Let's actually look at where the rubber meets the road here.
Actually, I want you to prove how this is immoral by your standards.
So don't worry about this.
Because you don't like to?
So, here's 1 Samuel 15:3. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Now, I'm going to ask you, do you think that this is a moral command?
I actually think that,
you do.
I'm not going to try and two-coque you. Yeah, I do.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. So that is a perfect demonstration of Sean's point, which is you think that it's moral for men to be told to kill babies and children with swords because God said it, because God is defined in your world as good. This proves the point that Sean was trying to make. It wasn't an absurd reductio. It was a perfect example of the moral travesty that is involved when you start out by defining God as good, and you're then burdened with having to ascribe that same value to all the atrocities attributed to him. You solve your moral problem.
I'll become atheist. Now, can you prove to me that this is morally wrong objectively?
We don't think that I'm not saying it's wrong objectively, because I've already claimed. Calm down.
Then. It doesn't matter.
It's okay. Look, this is going to hurt, but it'll be over soon. Okay. So I've already stated that I don't claim anything is wrong objectively. It's my starting point is that I think it's wrong because I'm not a psychopath. Do you?
So who are you?
And your answer was that you think it's right. Right, so you're the one who has to deal with the fact that you've just said.
Should we listen to you, though?
You're not obligated to listen to me. I think we could put it. We could put a vote out. We've got 400 or 500 people listening to us right now. We could see. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. We could ask the 400 or 500 people listening to us and the tens of thousands of people who are going to watch this when it's clipped on YouTube if they agree that killing children with swords is not right. And my suspicion is that most of them would agree with me that it's not something we ought to do. Now, I'm not claiming that as an objective fact. I'm not claiming it as a statement that's amenable to truth or falseness. That's the avenue you're trying to push me into, but that's not where I live. That's where you live. I just live in the place where I'm going to say, I have an opinion about ethics. And my opinion about ethics is that killing children is that killing children with swords is wrong. I believe that verse in my moral framework is wrong. I'm just a person expressing an opinion, and that's all any of us are. You're just the person expressing the opinion that killing children with swords is okay.
There's no reason actually that I shouldn't do 1 Samuel 15 again. There's no reason.
I think there is a reason. because I think it's against
not a reason that matters.
It is
Let
a reason
him
that
finish,
matters.
dude.
It is a reason that matters.
It matters to you.
Yes,
To who else?
it matters.
And it matters to you to do what you're told like a
It doesn't
good
matter
boy.
to me. It doesn't matter to me what John
No,
says.
I said to do what you're told like a good boy.
No,
That's your
because
that
you
is your
convinced me, dude.
let me finish.
I'm following your worldview.
Yeah, so it matters to us how actions affect the well-being of others, but you prioritize doing what you're told. We just have a different value system. That's it. You're basically taking your preference and by decree calling it objective without actually demonstrating that it's objective. Morals take place in the mind. There are appraisals, there are evaluations of whether we like or dislike behaviors. Prove it exists outside of that. And if you invoke your God has a mind, so that means it's not mind independent. Therefore, it's not objective. It's subjective.
I'd love to speak about that actually. So can you actually prove that God being a necessary mind is actually a subjective opinion?
We're having a discussion about ethics, but all of this stuff is bullshit. What we're talking about here is what this slavish adherence to this disgusting creature does to people's ethics. What you do in your framework is you solve your moral problem by abolishing morality and simply replacing it with obedience. That's all you do. And God is axiomatically defined as being good, and then every atrocity and horrific act attributed to him is retrofitted into goodness by decree. This is what you do. And this leaves you in a morally ridiculous position. You can do all the philosophical tap dancing around this you want, but you're the one in the conversation agreeing with killing children with swords. You're the one in the conversation agreeing with stoning men to death for picking up sticks. You're the one in the conversation agreeing with stoning gay people to death. You're the one in the conversation agreeing with stoning suspected non-virgin brides to death. You have to carry all of this because of your slavish obedience to this hideous system. I don't have to carry any of it. And you saying, well, how do I know my view is true, is just a distraction from the fact that your view leaves you morally bankrupt. And that's unfortunate. I'm sorry that you have to carry that burden.
Bankrupt, but you admit that it doesn't matter. Oh my God, I'm done, bro. I'm done.
You are done because your argument is a nonsensical one, and I think that actually that makes the argument as much as anything needs to be made here. To me, that's a logical endpoint for this argument. I think we've demonstrated where yours leads you.
It doesn't matter a child get kidnapped.
We've just demonstrated.
You're literally
he's flailing. He's flailing. He's crashing hard.
It's bad when you guys strawman me.
He's crashing hard.
When you guys strawman me.
I know. It's very hard.
Tacitly admitting he's straw manning.
Yeah, he's crashing hard right now.
Oh, that was actually a steel man, but it's all right.
Yeah, I know. So I think the conversation has probably reached its pinnacle. I think we have established what our values are. You are claiming
I don't think you've established a single value. You've established that it doesn't matter.
I know you don't. I know. So I think we've probably done with the conversation. I'm glad that you came in to speak to us. And there was actually a request from a member to ask you this. So before you go, perhaps you could answer this question from Drew. What I want the theists to answer is the question, what is the purpose of morality? Isn't it to create a set of behavioral guidelines that support communities in a social species? Now, I'm going to suggest that's not what you think morality is for. You think morality is just to be a good little boy for your big daddy in the sky. Would I be right about that?
Oh, wait. So under this worldview, you would actually deduce reality to pragmatism because it just works.
Are you going to answer that?
This is a question. Are you prepared to answer the question?
No, this actually reduces morality to I do it because it works. So I don't kidnap people because it works, not because I actually...
Do you think that was an answer to the question?
It's not. It wasn't prepared to answer it. So we say goodbye. Okay. Well, thanks very much. It was fun.